Welcome back to the revolution. Gemini season manifestation. Okay, fairly simple but heavy. So let's get right into it. I talked about it on Twitter. You can follow me there. It's there as a thread. So really this is a recap of that. The key to Gemini success, creativity, to harnessing Gemini energy this particular season is all about being in the flow. The flow has everything to do with innocence. Innocence has everything to do with having an open mind and no agenda. How do you manifest from a place of having no agenda? Good question. So the larger question would be, how do you get what you want without asking for it? Or once you've asked for the thing, how do you let it go? This is something Geminis are really, really good at. It has at times been called detachment, but I think it's more than that. I don't think it's detachment. I think it's an accepting of the way things are. And there is a lot of power in that. And there's also a creative space that is built there. What in the I Ching is called the containment of potential. Excuse me, it's going to bother me if I don't turn it off. A very Gemini thing for my phone to be going off right now. So that was really stressing me, so I couldn't concentrate because it was taking me out of my flow. So let's back up a little bit into Taurus season and what we talked about in terms of boundaries and what we needed to be cognizant of last season. We talked a lot about knowing where to really push back against people and what they want from you and what they need from you, and to be able to give yourself what you need in the space that's created there. And I also said that once you do this and you contain that potential, we will be able to, in Gemini season, then take that and make it into something real. So you were probably thinking, okay, so that means that now Gemini season starts and we'll be able to visualize what we want, and she'll show us exactly how to, look at it, and then we'll get it. But that's not what Geminis do at all, and that's not how Gemini energy works. The reason we're such good manifestors, the reason we're so able to quickly get what we want, and in most situations, even when we seem like we're completely messing up, we end up prevailing, is because there is no agenda. There is no agenda. There is a need to create something. There is a want, but it's very different. I'm going to put it to you this way. I really like the way I put it in the Twitter thread, so I'm just going to go with that. If you knew for certain that you were going to get something, whether that was the part you were looking to land, the book you were looking to publish, the job you would really like to have, the amount of money you would like to have, whatever it is that you can see yourself really, really having, if you knew that you were just going to have it, what would you do? The first thing you would do is you would relax. The very first thing you would do, if you knew for certain, if somebody took you in a time machine into the future and said, look, you end up with that job, you end up with that girl, you end up with that guy, you end up having all that money, you end up with this thing that you really thought you could never have, that you really want, look, you have it. If you came back to the present time with that, with having seen it with your own eyes, how would you behave now? For one thing, you would completely relax. Okay, so that's going to happen. Good. The pressure would fall away after a few days. The impulse, the impetus to constantly be striving towards the thing would start to lessen. Not that you wouldn't feel passionate about things in your life anymore, but the drive would be different because it's the foregone conclusion, right? You're going to get that thing. So what happens then is something very childlike. What emerges out of that thing Yeah, this is Gemini energy. I turned everything off and still it's somehow dinging, and that's so annoying. So what happens in that space is very childlike. When you don't have an agenda, when you stop worrying about the future, when the future becomes a foregone conclusion, then in the moment, you completely relax and you fall into it. When you fall into that present space energy, you have to understand that space is where all the potential energy lies. It's the only place where the potential energy is. The only time you are able to really manifest anything is in that moment where you fall into that space somehow and you have the right thought or the right visualization in your head at the time, and those two things meet and boom, you are given the thing that you want, because it's like putting it into a replicator, right? So remember in Aries season, we talked about you want the thing and now it's coming back to you. Okay, so this is going more in depth into the process of what happens when you want the thing. So the way to explain that to an Aries is the way we did it a few months ago. And then the way to explain that to a Taurus is push back against the people who would naturally keep you out of that creative space. Gemini are able to not only create that space for themselves, but for others around them. That's what makes us the conduits that we are. We are able to pull all sorts of disparaging elements into the present now with us because we are so much in the now. That's part of why Kanye sounds so crazy when he talks live, because he's so in the moment. He's not thinking about what he said 10 years ago, and he's not thinking about what happened last year. He's thinking about just now. So when you're in that just now place, because you aren't worried about how that thing is going to get done, you're not even worried about your daily concerns, right? Because you've already seen this totally palpable future where you're like, yes, this is what's going to happen. So in that present, all your current impulses and drives to do things fall away. And what you're left with is this really clean space in the present moment. Now, when all those pressures fall away, you realize a few things about yourself. There are things you really like to do. There are things you really like to study. There are things you really like to experience. And you will find yourself, because you are not afraid and because you are not planning out your survival, you will find yourself engaging in those things. And when you engage in those things, you engage in those things fully because they're not being done for any reason whatsoever. Sure, you had this overarching need to be successful, to be well off, to be married, to have kids, and no one is taking that away from you. But there is no way to get from there, where you are now, where you don't have those things, to where those things exist, in that probability future where those things exist. There's no way to get there by saying, I don't have that thing, I want it, give it to me. Which I think, is it Carolyn Casey who calls that tantrum yoga? Where you basically throw a fit and it's like, I want this thing and I'm not going to be happy until I get it. That there is no way to sort of shop with the universe. You can't go into a store and just be like, I want this, I want this. However, when you get into that clean present now space where all alchemical processes happen, when you get there, and instead of asking, instead of wanting, you do that which you want, that which you love, that which you in the foreseeable future would like to have. You paint, you write, you draw, you write love letters, you write a book, you do people's makeup, you do people's hair, you create sculptures, you bake, you cook. It doesn't matter. When you're in that space of doing that thing that you just really like to do, and you're not doing it because you have to, because of this or that, you're doing it because you don't have those concerns, because the foregone conclusion of the future has created within you an innocent space where there is no other reason for doing something other than the joy of it, the aesthetic of it, the pleasure of it. That is the Gemini manifestation space. We are like little kids. I'll give you an example that seems really silly, but it stayed with me for a long time, because it was a Gemini that noticed it, and it was a Gemini that was doing it. And I have so much love for this guy. So I have a friend, my ex-husband's name is Jacob, but I also have a friend named Jacob. And he is just wonderful, first of all, just wonderful in every way. But one day when we had first met, I was putting peppercorns in a grinder. So it was like a bottle of peppercorns and it was a grinder, and who is now my ex-husband was like, hey, would you do this while you're sitting here? And I was like, yeah, sure. So I'm like putting them in there. And at some point, this other Jacob looks over at me and he's laughing. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? Like, what's going on? And he's like, you're putting them in one by one. And I was like, yeah, what, like, I want to make sure like they don't fall out. And he's like, no, you're having fun doing that. And I was like, yeah, I am totally having fun doing this. And he's like, yo, you're like a little kid. And I'm like, I guess, I don't know. Like, it's just, yeah, you're right. I wasn't even really thinking about it. And he's like that in his own life. And I'm like that in every aspect of my life where I'm in the space of doing the thing. I'm not thinking about, oh, I have to put all these peppercorns in this grinder and I've got to get this done, because of course there's someone on the other end of this who's like, can you put that stuff in the grinder so I can use it? That is outside of my scope in that moment, because I'm just really enjoying what I'm doing. And the example that I gave in the Twitter thread is if you've ever been around like a 2 or 3-year-old who will not, you cannot impress upon them the importance of like, we are in a hurry, we gotta go right now. And they just kind of look at you like, toy, bathroom, snack, music, nap. And you're like, no, right now we can't do that. And they're just, in that moment when I was doing that, if someone had yelled at me and been like, what are you doing? I asked you to do that because I need it. I would have like freaked. I would have like that. I would have taken that really personal. Like just thinking about it is making my cheeks red. Like, what? Why are you disturbing me in my place? Like, this is my creative space. And that's what I'm talking about. That creative space exists for us. And by us, I mean Gemini Sun, Gemini Moon, Gemini Rising, Gemini Mercury. What exists for us is a sort of dream space. When we get into a creative pursuit of any kind, we get into any activity, we make it into that dream space, creativity experience. How else do I say that? I'm really fidgety with this Gemini energy. I try to keep it under wraps when I do the videos because it's naturally so much who I am, because I'm so ruled by Mercury. The Gemini Sun, Virgo Moon, like very mercurial, very mutable, very sensitive. Everything like itches and bothers me. So I fidget a lot. But I try to keep it to a minimum, but Gemini season just brings it all the way out. So bear with me if I'm just like sniffling and, messing with myself. The raw nerve element of Gemini right now is really exposed. And I'm going to talk about that more in the video, but I'll mention it here because so many Geminis have said, like, I feel really emotional. I don't know what's going on with me. Yeah, well, what's going on is we have all this activity in our 11th and 12th house. Of course you're emotional. You're feeling everything because you are learning so fast. Like, things are being taught to you on a level that you are not consciously aware of. You are learning in your dreams right now. And you are learning at a really, really fast pace. So go easy with yourself. You might be crying about something that you have already in the dreamscape understood, and it's going to take you 2 months to understand it now in the present. So you're crying about stuff that you can't even begin to process yet. So easy with yourself. One of the things, the dirty little secrets that Geminis don't like to tell anybody is that although, Capricorns and Virgos and Tauruses kind of take the cake for being hard on themselves, we are extremely hard on ourselves for another reason. We're hard on ourselves because we're Leos in terms of communicating. So we really do hold ourselves to a totally other standard than other people. And that sounds awful. And I'm totally aware of how snobby and sort of obnoxious that sounds, but we do. Our being hard on ourselves is magnified to a degree that you wouldn't even begin to believe, because we're not competing with everybody else. We're competing with some aggrandized version of what we think of ourselves. It's really our competitive nature, if there is one in Geminis, has to do with us competing with our own ego and what our ego would like to see us at, if that makes sense. It's actually a really healthy way to deal with your ego because we use it as a benchmark as opposed to letting it devolve us into sort of money hungry, envious, competitive people. We use that ego within us, that Leo sort of, impulse. And we say, and what we do with it is we say, the best of the best of the best of the best would be like this. Why am I not like that? So super, super hard on ourselves. So if you're being hard on yourself right now because you're very emotional and you don't know why, and you're not acting like the typical Gemini self, and your season is coming up, and why am I crying when my season is about to come up, and this better not keep happening during my birthday, like I'm not having this. I hear you and I understand, but when I tell you that we're in a period of incredible growth, it's an understatement. Even incredible growth is an understatement. There is so much to learn right now, and this Gemini manifestation is the key. And I'm not saying that because I'm a Gemini and it's our season. I'm saying it because it falls at a certain point in the year. My brain is all over the place. It is. Because it's moving so quickly. Like, taking on this energy is so, it's like having like a drip of like coffee in your veins. Yeah, I'm aware. I'm aware of the irony of what I just said. Anyway, we're coming up at a point in the year where you have the know-how. You've taken the mental steps. You've drawn the lines. And now you've got this space. And you get to sit in this space and play. Play like a child. Play like a Gemini. Interaction breeds intelligence. This is why Geminis are so intelligent, because we interact. Interact with your surroundings. Don't look at people. Talk to them. Don't look at your phone. Video call someone with it. Don't look at your computer. Write something. Interact. Communicate with your surroundings. And then when you're in that space by yourself, in that creative space, because you are no longer worried about your future because you have seen it, I'll get to that part in a second. When you're in that play space by yourself in the boundaries that you drew in Taurus season, with the Aries initiative and want that you put out there at the beginning of the year, then sit there and color, sing, draw, paint, do whatever, because your future is secure. So now let's get to that part. Because you're sitting there thinking, if you're not a Gemini or a Sagittarius or a Virgo or a Pisces, then you're sitting there thinking, well, I don't have a time machine and I can't go into the future and know for sure. So what is this all about? Like, this is not logical at all. Okay. But the way your brain works and the way mirror neurons work and the way that your biology and your physiology works is that it doesn't know that you didn't go in the time machine to the future and not see that. You can make up any scenario that you can think of, and you can see it in your mind. And if you see it in your mind and you can make it palpable and you can actually stick to it, then you can enter that place of rest and play in the present, because the future becomes a moot point. Why are Geminis able to do this so much better than everyone else? Because when you see yourself in that future spot that you would really like to be in, most people can't sustain that illusion. Most people look at that and say, yeah, I saw it in my head, but that doesn't mean I'm going to get it, Umber. Like, all right with the secret shit already. No. The only difference between most people and Geminis is that when we see that in the future about ourselves, there's a huge queen bee right outside the window. It's like distraction after distraction. When we see that in our heads, that version, that super hyped, super successful version of ourselves, whatever it is, When we see it, we're like, word, yep, that's me. That's the difference. Our ego and our confidence, self-confidence, self-love may come off really, really, abrasive to most people. It is really irritating. I understand it. I can see it myself. But what it affords us is the courage between, I saw that thing in my head, and I'm now going to act like that's a given, and I'm going to get that thing. Why am I now going to act like that's a given and I'm not going to worry about it? Because what I saw in my head, I know I can achieve. I have enough belief, whether it's founded in anything or not. I have enough belief in myself that I know that that version of myself that I saw, I can get there. If you are a Gemini and you are left out of this process, I would venture to guess that it is the imagining part that you are having problems with. You can't see yourself in a more superior state than you are in now. And if that is the case, then I can give you a very simple technique that I'll go into more in the book, in narrative novel form, of course, but still it'll be in there, and so will the 8 Gates meditation. One of the easiest ways to put this to the test, to really use the creative play space of the Gemini, and this will help you not just now, it will help you throughout the year, and it'll help you for the rest of your life. And you can talk to your Gemini friends about this, and they will absolutely attest to getting completely lost in the most mundane activities that then lead to great breakthroughs, amazing breakthroughs, right? So one of the most simple ways that you can try this out for yourself, azma ke dekh lo, just try it out, is to spend about 10 minutes a day imagining yourself in a space that you find very comfortable. So for me, I'll just share my own, and it's really sweet. And my Pisces friend Jason always tells me, you say a lot, but you don't tell nobody nothing. It's true. So I'll tell you, because it's Gemini season and we overshare, no? So I'm gonna go against my Virgo moon and actually tell you something. So my space, where I visualize things that are really important to me. Everybody, you're supposed to create a space that is very comfortable for you, that has a lot of meaning for you. And so my mental space that I go to when I'm doing this sort of work is Nick's little cabin there, Nick's little house on Gatsby's property. So there is a scene in the book where Gatsby comes to see Daisy, and he's chosen Nick's place to have the meeting. And he lives in this little house on the grounds of a gigantic property where Gatsby has a huge house. And so this really rich man comes to his little cottage and brings with him silver tea settings and just flowers and fills the place with all these flowers and all this silver and all this, these cakes and cookies and teas, and shows up in this, gorgeous suit and stands there sweating, nervous because she's going to show up any second. So for some reason, when I first got into doing visualization meditation, started teaching meditation, all of that, this is what occurred to me when someone had mentioned it to me. Go somewhere in your head that seems like a really sweet, safe space. And that's where we ended up, Nick's cabin, Nick's house. So when you're in your version of Nick's house, you can imagine the perfect version of you walking at some distance from you. Let's say at, 500 feet. Now, when you look at her, you'll notice, or him, when you look at her or him, or actually however you identify, you will see that they have a certain glint in their eye. Because they are not just the perfect version of you physically, although they are, and that's important. But they are also the perfect version of you in terms of accomplishment and success They have the job you want. They have the money you want. They have the clothes you want. They have the haircut you want. They have the body you want. They have the friends you want. They have the lover you want. They have the husband and the lover you want. Come on, it's Gemini season. Whatever, they got it. So when you see them, you're visualizing the perfect version of yourself who has all of those things and everything that you would like to attain and accomplish, that version of you already has. Then you observe that version of you walking towards yourself. When that version of you comes to a close distance to you, have them turn around and then visualize yourself stepping into them. Once you do this, you take a look at yourself. This will also help you in lucid dreaming. And stand there and let yourself feel what it feels like, even if it is for only a moment. Let yourself feel what it feels like to be that perfect version of yourself. Now, most people cannot sustain that feeling because immediately after that, you feel the horror and the terror of that actually not being your reality and actually everything sucks and I wish I wouldn't have even done that because I know now how horrible my life is in comparison to that. No, stop. Stop. Geminis are able to take that feeling and take all this intelligence and all this synapse, connection and go, this is what this feels like, huh? So I know my feeling creates my reality. So if I just walk around feeling like this, and when I don't feel like this, I can come back to this exercise and do this again and get hyped on this feeling again. And then where everyone else's dialogue comes in and says, no, but that's not the reality. And you're actually just kidding yourself. And, like Kanye, what the hell? The Gemini looks at themselves and goes, no, I'm smarter than that. I'm smarter than that. I know how this works. I got this. It's not about where I am right now. And to prove my point, remember that song by Kanye, The Good Life? He's basically giving you the breakdown of how Geminis manifest. The Good Life is all about, I used to close my eyes and imagine, but what was he imagining? He was imagining the feeling. It's like Aries season, imagining the feeling and then letting it go. So this is the Gemini way to imagine the thing and let it go. Sit with the thing. Play. Do the thing you love to do. Get lost in it. Put the peppercorns in the grinder one by one because it's super fun. And find yourself somebody who doesn't yell. When I looked at my ex-husband, I was like, I'm sorry, is this taking too long? He was like, no, it's gorgeous. Keep doing that. Find somebody who appreciates your version of getting lost in the thing. And when you get lost in the thing, when you get lost in that exercise, when you feel that elation of your best self, living your best life, when you feel that, enjoy it. Don't immediately go into, but I don't have that for real. What is for real? What is this real that we keep seeing? Try it. Enjoy it for 5 minutes. Just enjoy what it feels like to have everything that you've ever wanted it to look exactly the way you always wanted to look for 5 minutes. Try if you can sustain the illusion for 5 minutes. And then think about the fact that Gemini takes that feeling and goes, cool, I'm going to run with that. Oh, this is what it feels like to feel like the shit? I'm the shit! Wow, I'm the shit! Okay, cool. Let's do this. And it's obnoxious. And it may not be built on any merit sometimes, but look how well it works. Donald Trump. It works. So, Gemini season for all signs. In other news, Mars enters Aquarius right when I start my what has now become book tour, which is perfect because that is when Gemini should be out and about spreading knowledge and traveling. So we just keep hitting this year right on the mark. So wonderful. I'm so happy about it. Whenever I find myself in such perfect alignment, it just makes me like giddy. I would also like to thank you for all your help and all your support last month and all throughout the past, weeks here of just all the stuff we talked about, we don't have to go into it again, but just being there for me, it's been awesome. I'm so grateful. I feel so much better. I'm relieved. I'm re-energized. I'm just so happy. I'm so happy that we all pulled together, and it was so easy, actually, to take care of what I thought would be an issue. But I really was humbled by your response, and I was truly unprepared for the amount of support. So I'm not going to get all emotional, but we'll save that. We'll save that for a Cancer manifestation video, okay? So thank you for that. Videos start in a few days. I am going to make sure that they are all out before June 1st, hopefully a week before. So you guys have a good 7 days to really get into what is going to go on with Gemini season, because there's a lot of positive stuff going on, but it is, again, I love to refer to the I Ching. It is like the shock hexagram. Shock, it can be induced by the very disruptive or the very beneficial. You, in either case, need to be prepared for how to react when this new energy comes up, when you're forced into situations where you have to say and do things that will require this play space that I'm talking about. Now, one of the best ways to use this energy, and that's why I'm putting this video out early, is because you can use this energy preemptively. So yes, we're coming up on Gemini season, and that's awesome. But in the week, 2 weeks that we have until then, you can already start to sit in that play space. If you've done the Taurus work of setting the boundaries, you have that play space set up already. Sit in it and lose yourself. Lose yourself in whatever it is that makes you happy, because you've already seen in your head and you've already felt the feeling of what you want most, and so you are free. You are free of time in the present moment. That's what you must understand. Geminis hate to be shackled. Most of us don't wear watches, ever. I think I've been saying since I was 6 that watches are bars on the soul. I don't think I knew what a soul was at 6, but okay. But I knew to say that. So precocious. We don't like to be shackled. We don't like to be tied down by anything at all. And so the present moment for us really is our escape, to be perfectly honest, because it is the only place where you are free. It is the only place where time does not exist. And time is the great constraint. Okay? More on all of that in the book, which I am furiously finishing. Don't worry. It's coming along. Dates for the August tour go up soon. I'm just finalizing stuff, so I'm sorry that's a little delayed. And that's about it. I love you guys. I'm having so much fun. Instagram is so lit, by the way. Like, we just vibe, we just vibe, like it's a vibe, and like we just get each other. And like whenever people ask me about the revolution, they're like, God, you guys are so close. Like you seem like you're so close with like the people and I'm like, the people who watch my chat, you mean the revolution? Like they have a name. The people. Don't say people, man. I'm doing business here. I'm going to try to see if I can work that into every video this month. But it has to be organic. It has to just come up on its own. I love you guys so much. Happy early Gemini season. We're so precocious and annoying. Of course, Gemini season video had to be early, still during Taurus season. So disrespectful. Sorry, guys. But you will be able to use the energy as well. Now, for Tauruses, as your season's ending, it's one of the things that I want to start doing is like kind of moving you guys into the next season, because then your video is going to be close to the end. You're going to be like, oh, we were first last year, never again. Only once a year we get to be first. So let me address you guys as well. First of all, great job. Taurus season has been hella lit. So yay. I hope you guys have been having a really good time. For those who still have their birthdays coming up, happy birthday. For the Geminis, obviously, happy birthday. We'll get into all that. We'll like get ratchet and like it'll be like our reading will be lit. But for the Tauruses. So now as your season is ending and you have this Uranus in the first house business going on, what shall we do with your creative play space that you've made? You pushed your boundaries back. You have this space now. And perhaps you don't want to go as far as doing the best self exercise because it's really a stretch for Tauruses, right? I would suggest that you sit. Sit in that empty space that you've made with the earth and the flowers and the love and the people and the food and all the things that you have and that you love. And see what comes out of that. Don't push. Don't drive. Try to see if there is a organic growth of something now that springs from your calm, from your knowing, because the calm has resulted from pushing the barriers back, right? So now that you have this quiet, calm space, see what naturally emerges in that space. And once you find it, once you have that like, ooh, this is the thing, then take on the Gemini energy and sit with it and say, yes, I'm going to play with this. Not because I have to, not because it'll get me this or that, because I want to. Geminis only do what they want. And everyone's always mad at them for it, but it's because we live and breathe that creative now space. And in that now space, if you do what you want, you can get what you want. It's such a fun time of year. Enjoy it. Happy early summer, late spring. I love you guys. I'll see you in the videos in about a week.